seems to be a fly buzzing about the room, which is really fun. Just hear me out for this one. Astrology, my take on it. I'm a fan of astrology. Vedic or tropical. Honestly, I follow tropical more. If you don't know what... Oh my god, this is not good. Haha. Okay, I wanted to wash my hair last night, but it didn't happen. Due to, well, the timing and the fact that the water was bloody freezing. So, anyway, doesn't matter. Astrology. Do I think that we should be reading daily forecasts? No, I don't think that that's necessary. There are people out there that don't live their lives simply because of astrology. Because Mercury is in retrograde, they don't want to do X, Y, Z. Now, it's up to you how much you take, right? I'm not talking about anybody else, what you all do with it. But I also don't think that it's worth not paying any attention to. I don't think you should disregard it, and here's why. Astrology, I feel, can outline the baseline personality that we are born with. Now, I don't just mean your sun sign. I don't just mean your star sign, right? There are people out there that are like, they don't even know what their sun sign is. Listen to me. Fine, you don't care what your sun sign is, but find out the rest of your placements. Go into a birth chart calculator. Go into a birth chart calculator and find out what your rising, sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars are, at the very least. Find out your south node and your north node, okay? And the reason I recommend this is because it gives you an indication as to how you will behave naturally, what your natural tendencies are, what your natural strengths are, and what your natural weaknesses are. Because of the placements that I have, I recognize and know my own needs better. And you can't tell me that that's not helpful. I am not out here... like, it's not some weird confirmation bias shit where I'm like, oh, because I have this placement, I'm gonna behave like this. That is not what I'm doing. What happened was, as I learned and I developed my understanding of astrology, I then realized my patterns looking back, and I was like, oh my god, this adds up. The way that I behaved this many times, again and again and again, it makes sense. Like, this placement, the correlation between my actions and the description of this placement or this combination in astrology, it absolutely makes sense, okay? Now, even if it is just a load of hogwash, or you think, okay, well, maybe I am, I'm believing it too much, whatever, as long as I like using it as a tool. I like using it to understand myself and the people around me better and what they need. I take it with a grain of salt, always, because I understand people have free will. Just because a Libra can be indecisive doesn't mean that she'll always be unable to make a decision, Like, I don't judge people based off of their signs, period, but I think that knowing your placements is such a helpful tool, and I really feel like that shouldn't be disregarded. You could be there with your Mercury in, I don't know, Gemini, and you're trying to communicate with a Mercury in Scorpio. I'm not saying you can't do it, but at the same time, the way in which you guys communicate could be very different. And if you're in a relationship with somebody with certain placements, it's helpful to know what their placements are as well, because then you know maybe what their love language is, how they like to feel loved, how they like to express love, things along the lines of that, how they're sort of like their emotions, their mind, the way that they like to naturally think. It's so helpful, and I really feel like they shouldn't be neglected. Similarly, placements, where your ascendant is, your descendant, your where the placement of certain planets are within your birth chart, it can give you an indication. I don't follow my chart and obsess over each part of it and say, okay, this is who I am, and that's on that final, and everyone needs to just accept me, and this is how I'm going to be for the rest of my life. No, I just like to look at it and be like, okay, this is naturally what I could be like, naturally what people around me could be like, but I also recognize people are more than just their birth charts, and most astrologers do. Okay, so this is my quick video just to show you why I like astrology. There's a little bit more to it, but how I use it basically, and how I recommend other people to use it. Whenever I've tried to sort of therapize other people and give them advice, I've actually always taken into account their specific placements too, as much as I possibly could with the knowledge that I had, and it ended up helping them the most because it meant that I could tailor my advice to them. There's no point in giving person A certain advice that you're giving to person B when they have completely different like natural temperaments. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like astrology should not be underrated when it comes to assessing one's personality. When it comes to giving advice in psychology and therapy, people try to categorize, like, I don't know, maybe I don't have enough knowledge, but it's like, yes, you should take people on a person-to-person basis, but I also think having a good understanding of astrology and the role that it has to play in people's lives, whether it comes to psychology, therapy, healing, life coaching, it is so beneficial. And it's not so we can plan out somebody else's life and so that we can tell them what to do in order to achieve fulfillment. That is never up to somebody else to decide for someone else. But I think that it can be helpful to kind of guide them to look within and understand what is and isn't true for them. And I think it'd be worth testing how much of that actually resonates. As far as I've witnessed, there have been a lot of, is it congruences? Like, things where it's like, it adds up. Like, oh, that person's being aloof. Yeah, well, look at how much Aquarius they have in their chart. Oh, that person's super, like, creative and emotional. Okay. How much Pisces do they have going on? Like, we try to make other people be like other people, but then, and this goes with and without astrology, but it's like, it can, when I say, like, it can highlight your strengths, like I said, like, everything is, I think, a little too generalized, and understanding one's placements and one's natural tendencies and what sort of, what opportunities could work really well for you, what your natural strengths are, I think it's just so helpful, and it shouldn't be overlooked. For me, I have Mars in Virgo, and I guess, you know, Mercury in Scorpio. So in terms of work, service oriented, and the fact that my Mercury is in Scorpio, I like to dive deep into things, and it makes sense. Like, when I've done all of my work in the past, I've been very, like, I study everything, like, so in depth, and like a crazy person, and that helps me. Like, I study myself, I'm interested in, like, psychology and these types of things, and it helps me, and I'm like, okay, I can utilize that. How can I use my natural interests combined with my work ethic that Mars gives me, and use, like, how can I just use that, you know what I mean? Or, like, if I look weaknesses wise, let me see, I have no weaknesses. No, when it comes to my Mars placement, for example, my Mars is in Virgo, it can be extremely nitpicky, get so caught up in the details, and I've noticed in the past when I have, and how irritated and in my head I can get, and I recognize, okay, that's a weakness, that's something I need to overcome. So I'm not saying that in itself this is a diagnosis for everything, but I think it can help you to highlight why you keep making the same mistakes, aside from, like, trauma, and aside from trauma. I think it can help you to highlight, like, what your key strengths and key weaknesses are, and your natural tendencies, and so you know what you're naturally prone to. And when you know yourself, it's easier to just accept that and be like, and that doesn't mean just settle with how you are. Like, as a Scorpio, because I've got like Scorpio placements, I'm, like, naturally possessive, I'm naturally jealous, but I don't have to be that way, because I recognize the destruction it's caused in past relationships when I was younger. What am I going to do? Stay that way? No. Like, I'm going to use that. I'm going to be like, okay, that's something I did because I didn't have the information then and I was young and immature. How am I going to progress moving forward? And I've learned and I've worked with that energy, and that's it. I look at it, I study it, and I use it to my advantage. I don't see why, like, you can call it pseudoscience, whatever, but seriously, just check out your birth chart. Look at the description. See how much of it resonates, and if it resonates, just use it. Use it to your advantage. Don't be like, oh, astrology isn't true. Your ego is literally what is keeping you from growing. The fact that you don't want to admit, even just if it's like 10%, that astrology could be, like, somewhat right about you. Like, I'm not saying you need to believe in that you need to read, like, daily horoscopes and, like, make your huge life decisions based on, like, what, because you're like a Cancer, that you can't marry a Sagittarius. Like, please, like, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, learn about yourself through it. Learn about the people around you. See how much of it is true. If your placements make it so that you're supposedly not meant to get along with, like, your dad or something, be like, okay, let's find out my dad's placements. Maybe I need to be communicating with them differently, and just try it, test it out. Maybe it works for you. It can help you to meet people where they're at and help them to understand you better. Like, when it came to me, understanding my Venus was so helpful because it made me realize why I didn't value certain things when it came to gifts and stuff. Like, I would, for example, if I give you an example, my mum would love to give me presents, right, for my birthday. And I would find it really frustrating because for me, it was like this, it felt like she was trying to buy me. Now, for her, she's just like, I want to give her, like, the most beautiful things, and I want her to be happy, and the most pure intentions. And me with my Venus and Scorpio, I'm just like, why are you trying to buy me? Like, I am the type of person, I appreciate a poem. I appreciate a heartfelt text. To me, that would mean so much more than someone buying me the most expensive whatnot, right? But obviously, I mean, I'm at this point now, having understood that and having understood myself, that if someone's gifting me like that, to receive it gracefully and understand that that's their way of expressing love. Like, I'm mature enough to be like, to meet them where they're at, right? And if they can meet me where I'm at, great. But I understand that not everyone is aware of that stuff, and that's fine. But I'm just trying to give you an example, like, how you can utilize it in your life so that you don't have to be like, that person doesn't understand me, they're never going to understand me, or I will never be able to understand that person. It's a tool. It's a tool. You can look at, like, career options, what might work for you, stuff like that. Like, just use it as a tool. It's an advantage to open your mind to it and to allow yourself to get to know yourself and the people in the world around you better through astrology. You are doing yourself a favor. Like, I'm so done with people, like, neglecting it entirely. You don't have to embrace it, like, as much as I have, for example, but just allowing yourself to be open to the fact that some things might be true and that you can learn about yourself through these things and learn how to better help yourself and communicate it with other people. It's a tool. That's it. Ciao. And actually, leave your opinions down below and if it's helped you, how it's helped you, stuff like that. Yeah. And we'll talk in the next video.